Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is actually sponsored by EA, but today's video is actually really something special because it's something that I see always asked in the comment section, my Discord, on how can you improve? You feel like your aim is good enough, your positioning is good enough, and you still don't know what area to improve upon because you're still hitting a wall in Apex Legends. Well, today we're going to discuss that within various quick chapters to help answer the question so you know what to practice and improve upon on Apex Legends. Let's go. It's going to feel very basic, but we're going to get really advanced very quickly, so every time you step away from a fight, you VOD review, and I always say memorize the last 30 seconds, you're going to improve immensely on Apex. Let's continue by breaking this down into a chapter. If you have two opponents that are first looking at each other for the very first time with no cover, and they see each other at the exact same moment, you kind of have this Western, it's high noon type of moment where all you rely on is your mechanical skill. Both of you see each other at the same time. Now the question is, who's going to win? Now, this isn't the most realistic scenario to put yourself in, because now you're only relying on your mechanical aim and there's no positioning or thought process behind it. This is the difference between a low tier player versus a high tier player. Now for chapter 2, there is a very big distinction here. I'm behind cover while my target is not behind cover. So when you do a checklist, you should always ask yourself, was I behind cover? And if I was, and I still lost the encounter, perhaps my opponent simply had better aim. Now, in the next example, what we're gonna do is actually take this from a different point of view. Let's say we had the jump on our opponent and we were looking from a different POV. Now, if I got the jump on my opponent and they shot me right afterwards and they managed to knock me, we know that the opponent simply still had better mechanical aim. But remember your checklist to success. You need to be able to get the jump on your opponent, meaning where they focused on another person. If this target was focused on a different person over there, that means that they're not focused on me. Now, if they turn and shoot, they're gonna see somebody that is listed behind a box. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna switch over to Mirage so you can see that point of view difference. Meaning all they can see is the head. Now, if they were to do a quick 180 and then look over and then start blasting you and knock you, then you know the difference here was still strictly mechanical aim. Now, the point I'm trying to get across here throughout these quick little chapters is to identify what mistake are you making. If you ensured that you were not caught out in the open and that you had the jump on the opponent, even if you got the jump on the opponent and you were standing out in the open, I would question why you're standing out in the open to make the opponent easier for them to flick and perhaps shoot you. If my target was right here instead, and I did a quick 180 and started looking at them, and then we got into a 1v1, I had the jump on the opponent, I still should have won, but I wouldn't necessarily want to put myself in that disadvantage. So when you're asking yourself, based on each of these chapters, what do I need to improve upon? Well, the first foundational block, just to recap, is to ensure that you're always behind cover and that you're utilizing some sort of head glitch. Utilizing this is going to be key from taking angle to angle, even if you're hiding in a corner like this. Standing out in the open is never going to net you any benefit to winning an encounter. The second one is to make sure that you get the jump on your opponent. That can mean surprising them with a flank, or perhaps that they're focused on another opponent. If you've already checked these two boxes and you still happen to lose the encounter, you know without a shadow of a doubt that you have to practice your aim. So what I highly recommend is after every single encounter, you check boxes, say, was it behind cover? Did I get the jump on them? And if I still lost, then it needs to improve my aim. You can't really judge your positioning or aim whenever you are in the opposite scenario. So why this video comes full circle is when we're really analyzing, let's say your opponent was behind cover or hiding behind a box and they were behind an object. But if they were wide swinging out, that's going to make it much easier, like this target dummy here. If they were closer behind cover, like this example right here, and I'm standing out in the open, then I know without a shadow of a doubt this is much harder to hit than somebody who is just full on out in the open versus this target right here. If I were to ask you the question and I gave all of you in the comment section $1 million and I said, would you prefer to hit this target? Or would you prefer to hit the target that was standing behind cover like this, that was much smaller, and you had to land as many shots as possible, I guarantee you would prefer this target because they're much larger and your chances of landing every single shot are higher. Don't make it harder for yourself, make it easier. Always look for a target that is much easier to hit. If you notice that your opponent happens to be behind cover and using it effectively, then you know the opponent that you're facing off against may be of equal skill level or perhaps a bit more knowledgeable in the game. This is a great tool to assess how skillful the team that you're pushing is. If you notice that the enemy team is taking a lot more cover, has a jump on you, surprising you, utilizing flanks, you know that team is a higher skill level. Now, these are just some of the basics to really understand that mistake and how do you actually learn and improve. So be honest with yourself with your positioning. And next time I see a comment, I'm hoping that this video is something that one can learn from, because it's an easy question that everybody has, and it has an easy answer. And why most people say, well, why don't you just keep practicing? It's not always that straightforward. So what you do is you review your VOD, look at the last 30 seconds or memorize the last 30 seconds and say, was I caught out in the cross? Was I behind cover? Was I able to get the jump and surprise my opponent? So you'll notice I keep repeating that many, many times in this video. I just can't stress the point enough, and I want to make sure that all of you understand. So if you want to improve, you look at that foundational block. And remember, as you keep getting better and improving, your positioning will start to become a little bit more complex and have a little more thought to it. And positioning can also mean the speed in which you take cover to cover. Let's take an example by using the little test range over here. And what we're going to do, we'll jump cut and then we'll wrap up the video. In this example, we want to highlight taking cover from angle to angle, meaning we don't want to peek out wide like this.
Sending out my decoy.
Peeking out wide means that your hitbox is going to be much larger. You always want to make sure that you're always using a half head glitch behind a box, so you're always more difficult to hit. With that in mind, you want to be able to move from position to positioning with purpose. So what this means is pretty much this first head glitch here is very, very strong. It's probably one of the strongest in the arena. 3, 2, 1, we move. 3, 2, 1, we move. Notice everyone's a head glitch except for this one, so we don't go to that spot. We go here for the head glitch. If we go left, it's going to be a wide swing. We can use this momentarily for a head glitch. We can use this for a head glitch. We can use this for a head glitch. And then we can use this for a head glitch as well. Now remember, there are other options for where you can use your head glitch. Now unfortunately, being out in the open and taking height means that your full body is exposed. But if the target is a little bit closer, then you'll notice that the individual will actually be able to have a smaller hitbox if they're closer. Here's the example. You can keep your hitbox a little bit smaller by controlling the height. Now in this scenario, notice that as you get better with positioning, everything becomes a lot more linear. I say within the coaching sessions that gaming becomes a little bit, lack for a better word, more boring. Because you always know the optimal space to go. You always know to go from corner to corner to corner and keep putting pressure, and you know what to avoid. Now, to answer the question, what happens when you're put in this scenario? Well, you can also use a mechanic called slicing the pie. Slicing the pie is where you get to peek the corner and back up a little bit. If you're too close, you'll notice that the geometry will move a little bit too quickly. Giving yourself a little space means that you can start to see a little bit more, and then find your opponent. Now, your goal overall is to utilize these mechanics, and while there is a counter to everything I'm mentioning, there's another counter to play as well. You could say an example, and this is where we'll wrap up the thought process, and I want you guys to start thinking like this, is that while I'm giving you guys a counter, there's another counter to that counter. So if somebody is here, and they say, oh, you're using the head glitch, what I'm going to do is I'll slice the pie. Well, you could slice the pie, but what I'm going to do is pre-fire the corner. And you could say, well, if you pre-fire the corner, I will also pre-fire because I have peeker's advantage. It says you can do that, but what I'll do is I'll throw a grenade. And then somebody says, okay, well, you know what I'll do? Before you throw the grenade, I'll put a Watson gen to the left of me to ensure that doesn't happen. So, well, what I'll do is to make sure to take out the gen by pushing up to height before you decide to cut the angle and slice the pie. So then I have the advantage. You notice this becomes a game of chess rather than checkers, because there's always a counter to another counter to another counter. Because this starts to pile up, and I want you guys to be able to dissect what happened into the encounter. There's not always a one-size-fits-all to ensure that you're always going to win the encounter. Notice how we started pretty simplistic on what the answers were, and as the video kept going, it got a little bit more complex. Remember to try to take things back to its most simplistic route to ensure that you can win a fight. I hope this video is helpful. I hope it helps you identify maybe perhaps that your positioning isn't perfect. Your positioning never is perfect. It's something you're always striving to improve, just as much as your aim. If you put 1,000 hours in, I'm sure there's somebody else in the world has put 1,500 hours in as well. Now, it's just a matter of being diligent, being patient, putting the hours in, and I promise you at the very end of it, you'll become a lot more happy and you'll become a lot more content, or make progress from the area that you want to. Don't be upset if you lose an encounter. Every single encounter that you take is a progress towards the next step to improving. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed this video. I've been thinking a lot about this video, and I'm not really sure how well it's going to do, but it's one that's been on my mind, and I feel like every time I try to title it, that it's just going to struggle and not do well at all. But I hope the concepts here today do help somebody genuinely, and if this video doesn't get any views, well, at least it helps somebody out there, and that was the goal and purpose. So thank you guys again. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all in the next video.